And I'll wait till the end to give you my overall thought process on Dave Ramsey and his philosophies. And when I've done videos on him before, I've gotten, what's the word I'm looking for? Like flack. I've gotten some feedback. I've gotten some pushback. I've gotten some naysayers that have said, well, Dave, he's a lot richer than you. Me, Dave, not him, Dave. He's a lot richer than you, and yeah, ABC and all that stuff. And yeah, he might be. And he's got a few more years on me. So I'm hoping by the time I'm there, I'll have more money from him. And I want to do it through real estate, right? So a little bit of differences. However, I'll let you, I'll leave that to you to decide. But I wanted to dive in and discuss some of the big things that he talks about. And throughout, they're all going to kind of compound on each other. And some of them will be pros, some of them will be cons, some of them will be positive or negative. But I will give you my opinion on all of that overall. Okay? Oh, is there sound, Mel?
Somebody said there's no sound.
Let me know if you guys can hear me, please. On YouTube. Can they hear me, Mel?
John said they couldn't. So.
Hopefully you guys can hear me. Otherwise, I'm just a talking head. Cannot hear. Sashin.
Is your mic on there?
I think so. I'm not too sure. I'm not the... yes, TikTok can hear me, but I don't know if YouTube can hear me. There we go. We can hear me? Awesome. Okay, so let's go into it. Let's get into it. And like I said, we'll go through the positives, the negatives, the pros, the cons, whether you agree or disagree with me. This is just kind of my opinion, okay? So let's dive into it. And the first thing with David Ramsey, and this is the biggest thing, this is huge, right, is debt. D-E-B-T, debt. And how do I say this? My philosophy, and sorry, let's not even touch on my philosophy. Dave's philosophy, Dave Ramsey's philosophy is that debt is bad. And all debt is bad. And I agree that there are some bad debts, right? As much as I agree that there are some good debts. There goes the book. But I don't think that all debt is bad. And that is something that when he talks about it, he talks about erasing all debt whatsoever and kind of paints it with a brush. And that's where I disagree. I do agree that you should not have bad debt, right? And that could be like car payments and, well, car payments are okay depending on it, right? If this is like, let's say if you wanted toys like boats and snowmobiles and vacations, I do agree you probably shouldn't go into debt for those types of things. However, debt is something that can be used positively, right? So let's say if you're buying an income property, and if you're tuning in today, that's probably why you follow us, is because we do income properties. We do multifamily income properties with none of our own money. And how do we do that is with debt. So on the point of debt, I agree, however, disagree. And we'll kind of dive in deeper with this. And some of the things that he does talk about that we have utilized is the snowball effect with debt. So he basically says take the smallest debt possible and kind of wipe that one out first, and then move on to the next one, the bigger one, the bigger one, the bigger one, until you eventually take that out. So that's the snowball effect that he talks about. And that I do agree with him on that aspect. Otherwise, if you've got, and let's just make up something up, if you have like 5 or 10 different debt sources that are not good debts, if you keep, using, well, I'm not a hunter, but let's say if you use like a buckshot, right, or whatever we call it, like a shotgun effect, and you kind of do it all towards, or sorry, you apply it towards all of them at once. Well, the progress isn't really there, even though you are making some, but that motivation isn't there. But let's say if you apply it to one specific one, right? You kind of laser focus and sniper rifle on that one. Well, it's going to go away and you're going to get there sooner, and it's going to feel good and it's going to be motivating. So that is one thing I do agree with him on, is debt and the snowball effect and taking out that smallest one first. And Mel and I did apply that before in our own I guess, well, real estate journey and also financial journey as well. Okay. The next thing is savings. Saving. And I'm going to touch on something else later, but let's just talk about saving overall. Is saving important? Yes, I do agree that savings are important. However, it's not the end all be all. And that is something that I find with Dave Ramsey is saving seems to be the biggest thing, or the most important thing with him. And again, I'm not saying don't save, and we'll talk about other different saving methods after. However, I just wanted to say, and this is debatable. This is someone can argue this, and I would just let me get into it. Is you can save yourself to be a millionaire, but there's other ways of making money, and saving yourself to that point is kind of boring, right? Like living sparse and living below your means is understandable. However, how far below your means do you want to live in order to save that money? And there's different ways of doing it without having to do that. So that's where I agree with him in the initial process of it, but then I don't think it's a long-term solution to get yourself to where you want to be. Um, oh, if you guys hear that, that's my dog. I was telling TikTok earlier, I have a German Shepherd dog, and she makes these weird noises. She sounds like a cow sometimes. So if you hear mooing or anything like that, that's Rexy, and this is live. So yeah, saving, I agree and disagree. I think it's important in the beginning, but then I don't think saving your way all the way to be a millionaire and not enjoying your day-to-day and not enjoying your life is the way to go, because I know of another way of doing it. So that is one that I 40% agree and 60% disagree. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, secured funds. Okay, so if you're Canadian, and I know we've released a couple of videos on secured funds. Actually, I think we have one tomorrow. We're releasing Kevin's secured funds tomorrow?
Using your finance.
Yes, so that's mortgage brokers tomorrow. Yeah, that was last week, secured funds. So in Canada, there's RSPs, there's Tfsas, there's LIRAs, and then in the States, there's 401k and Roth IRA. Now, I find he leans heavily on these, right? These secured funds. And he says to top them up, and that should be your investment route. And then I think from there they invest in mutual funds and stocks and that type of thing. So I disagree with this because I don't necessarily invest in my secured funds. Now, that being said, I do have secured funds. However, I don't put any more money into them. It's been things that had to stay secured, such as pensions or money I put in RSPs before. And the reason for this is, and this could be a whole other show, is it's debatable. Now, this is funds, or this is money that you're not going to have to pay tax on today, unless it's a Roth IRA, which you're kind of doing it at the same time. However, this is money that, yes, is saving you tax-wise, right, every single year. However, it's money that you're putting away for when you're 65. I would much rather take that money, put it into real estate, and make money now, right? Make money in an asset and investment now, and then still have that asset long-term, and eventually sell it down the road and pay taxes on it then. So I think, I'm not saying secured funds are wrong. I just think that there's a different way of investing that might be more beneficial. And obviously, since I'm a real estate investor, I'm biased towards that avenue. But that is something that I just find he's too much in the secured funds because you get that safe and comfortable return. And then again, you're not paying tax on it right now, unless you're doing like a Roth IRA. However, but it's mostly 401ks and it's mostly RSP. So that is my take on it. Is I don't necessarily invest in that. I'd rather invest in real estate to have best of both worlds. And that's something that I disagree with him on. Now, if you already do have secured funds in those vehicles, I would suggest, and again, this is me, I'm a real estate guy, instead of investing them in mutual funds in the stock market, I would suggest investing it into a vehicle, which then you can hand out more, or not hand out, but you can lend out your funds in the form of mortgages, right, through real estate. So that's how I do it with my secured funds. And I forgot to mention this earlier. If you like what you're seeing so far, subscribe to the channel. Make sure to hit the bell to get notified. Like it, comment below. There's going to be a Q&A at the end, so do not be shy and comment below, and I'll answer your question after. Now, number 4, mortgages. And this is something that him and I could not be more polar opposite on. And it's funny because next week, and I'll tell you now actually, next week we're going to be doing Robert Kiyosaki. So I'm doing kind of the yin and the yang. This week is Dave Ramsey, right? Who's all about saving, all about having no debt, all about paying for things cash. And then next week, so a little bit of heads up here, next week is going to be Robert Kiyosaki, who's all about the rich don't work for money and debt is king, right? So, and this is somewhere where a bone of content I have with him is mortgages. So he's all about, and it was funny because I was watching one of his episodes this morning just to kind of, every once in a while I'll watch him, and he's got some good points. However, I disagree with him, and he was saying, think of how awesome it would be to be mortgage free and to no longer have mortgage payments. The house is completely yours, or the asset is completely yours. And yes, how do I say this? Yes, that would be an awesome feeling, knowing that you own your house outright, that you don't have a mortgage payment anymore. Yes, that would be an awesome feeling if you just leave it there. However, being an educated real estate investor, I disagree with that. Respectfully disagree, of course, right? And the way I look at this is I could have no mortgage payment, right? So zero. And let's be honest with you, you never really own your house. Stop paying your property taxes and you'll see who owns your house, okay? So anyway, that's a little side joke. But what I'm getting at is here, let's say you have a zero mortgage payment per month. Yes, that's nice. You can take that money, put it somewhere else. However, and then some of you may know this and some of you may not know this, what you could do is, and we do this all the time, so whenever we have equity in our house, and it's funny because we're going through it right now, we're looking at doing a refinance, okay? We're looking at doing that and adding a home equity line of credit, a HELOC. You could do that, or you could take out the money. But depending on the financial institution, sometimes they don't want to give you an actual cash out. They want to put it in a HELOC, which is basically a line of credit against your house. Now, let's go through this example very quickly because I know we're live and I just want to do it for example purposes. So you can have no mortgage, which means you don't have to pay any money and you get to keep that money and use it for other things. Or you could take that money out in the form of a mortgage, and if you're a real estate investor, you could invest it to make more money somewhere else in other income properties. So yes, you're not paying X amount of dollars out. However, if you do take that mortgage out, you could start receiving a lot more money in. So again, without getting too complicated, I prefer the latter, where I'd rather take that mortgage and invest it somewhere else, take those funds and invest it somewhere else, and actually make more money than I would be saving being mortgage free. So that is something that I strongly disagree with Dave Ramsey on, but again, to each his own, and I respectfully disagree. Number 5, emergency funds. Okay, this is one that I strongly agree with. So number 2 is savings, and I kind of wanted to touch on the emergency funds in there, but I think this is something that it deserves its own number here, its own topic, its own subject. And this is something I find a lot of people don't do. And he suggests, I think it's about 3 to 6 months of living expenses. I highly agree with this. I highly agree with this in a couple of different ways. I think you should have your personal emergency funds. So in order to meet your mortgage, put food on the table, any other car payment, whatever payments you have, I think that is very important all day, every day, at least 3 months. 100% agree with him there. I also agree with this because I'm a real estate investor on the real estate side of things. So your income properties, you should have an emergency fund there as well. And how do I say this? Because we use other people's money and we don't use our own money, right? We're using debt and mortgages and leverage. And this is kind of going against what he was saying. Because we don't use our own money, what we end up doing is keeping our own money as that emergency fund, as that backup for our income properties, our businesses, and also personal. So it's a different way of doing things. And I like how he said it. How did he say it recently? He said, someone said, you're negative. He said, no, I'm positive. I'm positive that there will be a rainy day. And I do agree with him on that aspect. So this is one that I 100% agree with him. Emergency funds, we just do it a little differently. I strongly suggest 3 months minimum personally, and then having a backup emergency fund depending how big your portfolio is, depending the type of asset class it is, depending where it is, all of that. So that's tough to give you an actual number, but you should have backup funds as an emergency fund for your corporations, your LLCs, your income properties, your business. 100% agree with him there. 6, only buying cash. Okay. And earlier, and I kind of caught myself. Number 1 was debt. And I said bad debt. I said a vehicle. I think a vehicle is a bad debt. Now, whenever I say this on TikTok or anywhere, people will say, well, what if you buy what's that Ford GT where you can actually make money, they sell it to you for this, and then after a year you can sell it for more. Like, I'm not talking about these extreme exotic vehicles where you can make money on. We're talking about the average Joe going out and buying a car, an SUV, whatever it is, okay? So throw that out the window, that example. I always get it. I'm like, really? We're not talking exotic cars here. So only buying cash. this is something that I somewhat disagree. I agree and disagree. And I'm not saying you should go out there and just go buy a $100,000 SUV and that's okay to finance it all the way. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm also not saying go buy a $100,000 SUV, save up $100K and then go buy it cash. I'm also not saying that. And he doesn't say that either. He's saying you should save up, you should buy the vehicle cash, and then you don't ride a nice vehicle and you just stay within your means. I do agree with that, and Mel and I have done that. We have sold our when we first met, we sold our brand new vehicles. We took a loss. We went upside down in them, and then we went and bought a $5,000 minivan. You might have seen some emails I sent out recently on this, an old Ford, what was it? Ford Star? Windstar? Whatever, doesn't matter. An old Ford minivan. So we did do that because we were paying off other debt snowball. So again, I have used these his tactics, but I also use other tactics as well. Now, to wrap up the only buying cash the vehicle, I know I'm long-winded here. What I'm getting at is, if I look at it as a real estate investor, so if I know I'm going to go buy a $50,000 vehicle, insert here whatever type of vehicle you're thinking, and I'm a real estate investor. If I have $50,000 in my hand and I want to buy a vehicle, I am not going to use that $50K to buy that vehicle cash. No, I am going to finance that vehicle over X amount of years at X amount of interest rate and just pay off that interest, which I'm going to buy in my corporations and utilize that for my income properties and then write it off anyway. What I'm going to do with that $50,000 instead is use it as a down payment on an income property. All right, Dave, do you want to buy a vehicle with your cash, or do you want to buy an income property? All day, every day, income property. So that's why I disagree with only buying cash, because I know that $50K that I could save on the vehicle and the interest payments, I know that if I take that same, apples to apples, take that same amount of money and go buy an income producing asset, that I will blow it out of the water. The money I'm making on that will supersede what I would have been paying in interest and some. So that is why I strongly disagree with only buying cash for things like that, because if you know how to invest in real estate, the money you have will be so much better in an income producing asset as opposed to saving on a depreciating asset. So that is why I disagree with him to a certain extent on only buying cash. Number 7, credit cards. Okay, credit cards. This is like a no-fly zone for him. He doesn't like credit cards. And I think he says, don't quote me on this, and please don't quote me on any of this, but he says something about if you don't have it, you shouldn't buy it. And credit cards, you need a credit card, right? And he's not opposed to them. However, the thing I like about credit cards, a couple of things. I buy something on my credit card, I pay it off right away. What happens? This builds up my Equifax, it builds up my FICO, my credit score, and it also gives me 30 days. Now, if done correctly, you can really truly use credit cards to your advantage. If used incorrectly, this could be a crippling rabbit hole. So I 100% agree with him that these, isn't it Harry Potter, Kevin? With great power comes great response. Spider-Man?
Yeah.
That's how much I watch shows. With Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. So same thing with credit cards. They're beautiful. You can use them to buy a whole whack of other things, and you can extend that for 30 days or so, right? However, you can get in a lot of trouble at 18% or 25%. Now, I don't agree with not having credit cards whatsoever. I just agree that you have to know how to use them. So if you're in a bad position and you're doing that snowball, that number one, the debt snowball like I was mentioning, don't use your credit cards. Stop. Our general manager always says, if you're in a hole, stop digging, right? So if you're in debt and you're having a hard time, stop using credit cards. You're just continuing to dig. Now, once you've gotten out of that hole, you've got good financial literacy going on, you understand how to use them, you understand how to leverage them and use the power of them. Now you can use them, have 30 days to pay for it, pay them off before, never pay interest, and also build your credit score at the same time. And this is something, as soon as my kids are eligible to take out credit cards, they will, because this is how we're going to help them build credit. So him saying that credit cards are always bad, I just want to be on the other opposite side of saying, take that with a grain of salt. They can really hurt you, but they can also really help you. Okay, so that is something that, again, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, which is a lot of this I find with Dave Ramsey. I find if it's all or nothing to a certain extent, there is a place and time for it. However, I just don't find it's an always, right, or a never. I have a hard time with that. So I will give you my conclusion as to what the overall I think, or what I overall think of Dave Ramsey and his methods, and how Mel and I have applied it in our lives after the commercial break. So make sure to check it out. Check out the commercial break. I believe it's the one where I'm drinking. It's maple syrup. It looks like something else, but I'm drinking maple syrup. So see you after the commercial. We'll go into detail as to what I think, and hopefully enjoy it. See you then.
What are you doing, Dave?
Mel, the Canadian real estate market is on fire right now, and I need my fuel in order to show these guys how to do it without any joint venture partners or without sacrificing all of their savings.
Well, let's go show them.
All right.
Want to learn how to buy Canadian properties using non-beyond funds?
And what if we told you you are able to solely own that, which means you have no partners?
It may sound too good to be true, but this is happening every single day with our students.
Take Heather. She bought 4 multifamily properties in less than 5 months.
And Adele, who purchased 51 units last year.
And Troy and Lisa, who added 33 units to their portfolio.
And Francois, he purchased 15 units and was able to quit his full-time job in less than a year.
How did they do it? Well, it's a simple 3-step process that leverages OPM, other people's money.
If you want to see how this works, then click the link below and we'll send you the training straight to your inbox.
Don't miss out. Now is the best time to create a real estate portfolio.
We'll see you in the training.
Defense is very important. You've got to protect your net. You've got to protect the basket. You've got to protect your end zone. All of that. However, at some point, if you want to win the game, you have to score a goal. You have to get a touchdown. You have to get a basket, right? It's just part of the game. So David Ramsey, I find, is very good. He's awesome at the defense. But then I find the offense is a little lax. And let me explain why. So let's talk about the defense. Now, Mel and I have used his strategies absolutely in the beginning. So when we had full-time jobs, we kind of got in the rat race, and that's going to get more into next week with Robert Kiyosaki. But we did get in the rat race, right? I was a full-time firefighter. She worked at the local college as a program developer and bought the nice house, bought the nice vehicles, all of the above. And then when we went to go buy income properties, that's when we realized that our debt coverage ratios and our total debt income, those types of things were higher than what we'd like to continue buying income properties. So that's when we had to go on the defense, right? Like I mentioned, we sold the 2. I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee. She had a brand new Dodge. I forget when they first came out. Beautiful pearl white. And like I said, we went underwater with them. We underwater, is that the saying? Or upside down? Whatever that saying is in the vehicle. So we owed more than it was worth because she had just bought it brand new, and we sold it like 3 to 6 months after. That's the worst thing you could do. But we did it because we had to stop digging, right? So we sold that vehicle. We bought that $5,000 van. We didn't go on any trips. We lived below our means huge. We paid off some credit cards, we paid off lines of credit. We did all those things, right? The snowball effect with the debts, paid off the smallest one first, got motivated, then paid off the next one, boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, you have more money per month to put towards the next debt. So all of that works 100%. And then saving money to pay that off. Like, if you're in financial hardship and you're in debt and you don't know what to do, his methods are beautiful. It works 100%. Well, nothing's 100%, 99.99%. And we can attest that it worked for us. However, again, life is not about just being on the defense. So once we did that, once we got into a better position, and were had more financial literacy and were more mature financially, we no longer wanted to play on the defense. Now we wanted to go on the offense. And this is where we started to disagree with his overall long-term methods, right? Of just paying off your mortgage, only buying that vehicle cash, all of the above, not using credit cards. And that's where we kind of went the opposite and went the Robert Kiyosaki way, which again, I'll touch on next week. That'll be the live next Wednesday. But that's where we went on the offense and started using debt and started leveraging mortgages, started leveraging other people's money, not paying cash for things. So that's my overall message on David Ramsey is he has a place. However, the always and the nevers, I just don't necessarily like it, right? So that's where I think you can use his methods in the beginning, but then if you want to reach financial freedom a lot quicker, instead of saving your way there on the defense, why don't you go on the offense and buy income properties or invest in businesses or whatever's up, whatever you like to do. I'm obviously a real estate investor, so that's why we like going on the offense. So that's my overall thought on David Ramsey. Those are the things I like, and those are the things I disagree with. But now we're going to be diving into the Q&A. Again, make sure if you like what you're hearing so far, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to get notified, comment below, ask me a question. And Mel and I, it's always at Investor Mel Dave on all major social media platforms. So again, let's dive into the Q&A. What do we got here? All right. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Great analogy. Defensive financial management is good, but if you only play defense, you can't score goals. Yeah, no, and thank you, Don, for saying that. And that's the thing is, when I've mentioned Dave Ramsey before, people get so mad at me, and it's like you have to take it with a grain of salt. And again, his method works with people that are having a hard time, because that is important, right? However, once you're out of that, once you've stopped digging, and once you're back on the surface, and once you're rocking and rolling, you don't necessarily need to apply all of those again. So yeah, no, I agree, Don. You got to get out there, buy some income properties, make some money, make some moves, use some debt, use leverage, that type of thing. Jordan. Hey, Jordan. Actually, Jordan's part of the Action family. Hey, Jordan. Where are you storing your emergency funds? Tfsas. Yes, I have stored them in there. The other thing too, Jordan, is in order to how did I want to say this? We'll take out lines of credit and then we won't touch them. So that is something that we have done. As our credit grows, as the banks, the financial institutions feel more comfortable, they will extend that credit. Okay, so we have it there, ready to deploy in case of emergency. So it's not necessarily like we have savings too that we do in TFSAs, but another point of doing it is, and that I like doing, is having credit available to you, not using it, but it's there in case of emergency, and it can amass to those 3 to let's say 6 months of expenses. But yeah, no, great question, Jordan. Is selling off some of your real estate after 65 part of your retirement plan? Yeah, and this is something, how do I say this, Jordan? And great question, and I like it. So Mel and I have a couple of different ways that we've been working with our estate planners, with our estate lawyer, right? Because the way we have everything structured right now is that we own not us. I don't own any real estate. It's all our corporations and entities and LLCs. However, our kids already own the real estate as well, okay? So at 65, I could take a back seat. The assets could manage, whether the kids want to manage it, whether we want to hire an asset manager and just sit back, we could do that. And the cash flow that we'll have amassed by that time will allow us to be completely passive investors in our own portfolio and cash flow and enjoy it. Or we could sell some of them, have to pay some capital gains, yes, but then maybe take those funds, live off of, or also invest them in other properties. So there's a lot of different ways of doing it, and it just depends on how you're structured, Jordan. But yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at right now. But again, that might change, right? As the times change, as new governments come into effect or come into power, they might change how legislation is. And again, this is the thing with the real estate investor, is you're always pivoting with with knowledge, you can pivot, you can put yourself in the best position or in order to benefit liability and tax wise and income wise. But no, good question, Jordan. Jeff, where would you recommend finding a good financial planner, estate planner? Excuse me. And for financial planner, we don't necessarily have. For estate planner, excuse me, estate planner, you're going to want to find a lawyer that does strictly that, or an attorney that does strictly that. Now, I'm not saying that lawyers and attorneys don't know how to set up estates and wills and everything. However, this is something that is a specialty. The last thing you want, and you could get that with the lawyer that you're already using. However, we like to go. If I'm doing real estate, I like to talk to my real estate and commercial lawyer. If I'm doing my estate, my commercial lawyer might have set it up, but then I want my estate lawyer to review it because that's all they do, all day, every day. They're in probate. They're in court all day going through this. They understand what to do and, more importantly, what not to do. So I would just make sure that you're finding a professional. If you're doing this for estate planning, and wills and that type of thing, then find one that is that's all they do all day, every day. But good question, Jeff. Don, how do you know when going into debt to buy properties is good debt? Sorry, how do you know when going into debt to buy properties is a good debt choice? Is there a formula for assessing an investment property? Yeah, good question. So we use our cash flow analysis matrix. And Jordan knows this as part of the Action family. So we use our cash flow analysis matrix that helps us analyze deals, right? Not every deal is a good deal. And that's something you'll learn as you start analyzing more and more. It's like a muscle, right, that you build. But what was I going to say? Yeah, that is something that it's all about ratio. It's all about cash flow. You have to know the market. You have to understand how the financial institutions look at it. So, but again, we use our cash flow analysis matrix. It underwrites deals like the bank, and that's what we do for every single deal. So yeah, good question, Don. Awesome. So cool, guys. So I'll wrap it up. And I'll say thank you so much for following. If you're watching this after the fact, I would love to hear your comments, whether you think I'm right, whether you think I'm out to left field. Don't worry, it's not going to hurt my feelings. I would love to see what you guys think. Next week, like I said, next Wednesday, total polar opposite. We're going to be talking about Robert Kiyosaki, and we're going to be talking about debt and leverage, and how his strategies can be, or how we apply them and how you can apply them as well. So thank you so much to everyone that watched. Again, tomorrow, November 11th, hopefully you're wearing a poppy. It's Remembrance Day. Thank you to all our past active and future members of the military in Canada and the States. We thank you, and we thank you for our freedom. So thank you so much for joining me today. We'll see you next week. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Bye for now.
I'm Mel.
And I'm Dave.
And we're the Investor Couple. To invest your money and you want to maximize on your profits.
This is where real estate truly wins.
2.5 years in the making.
Who called the plumber? And you now have an infinite return on investment